Hi everyone, my name is Jennifer. Welcome to my channel. In this video, I'm going to be taking you through the basic steps of turning a men's extra large t-shirt into a fashionable shirt that is more tailored. I purchased this shirt on eBay, and I can tell you between the times that I've purchased them, depending what vendor you get, some of them come longer, and those are the ones that I've turned into dresses. Some of them come shorter. I don't know if there's any way you can message the vendor and ask for specific measurements. But if you're wanting to turn it into a dress and you want more material to work with, I would suggest seeing if you can get like a 3XL. I'm about like a size 4 or a size 6. So a men's extra large, if you want to do a shirt, is perfect. You can still do that if you're a little bit bigger, but you just won't cut as much off of the fabric. If you look on Pinterest, there's a lot of inspiration on different ways you can cut the neckline, different things you can do with the sides. This video is in response to a TikTok I just did. I posted this shirt. It had over 200,000 views in a very short amount of time. I did a quick TikTok follow-up explaining the process, but it was really hard to get everything in under a minute. So this is a full YouTube tutorial. And if you have any questions following this, please leave them in the comments. Now, the first thing that you want to do is take your shirt and turn it inside out and lay it on a flat surface. Okay, and you want to make sure that when you lay it down, that everything is nice and neat. You want to make sure that when you cut this and sew it, that the hemline matches up. So I'm going to go ahead and put straight pins across the whole front. You don't have to do a ton of them. It's just mainly where the seam, when you cut it and sew it, where that comes together. But there would be nothing worse than sewing a shirt, and then when you look at it from the side, it doesn't match up. Same thing with the arms. You want to do the same thing there too. You want to line those up with each other and put a straight pin. Now, there are many different ways to do this. If you're not someone that has a sewing machine, you can cut this and leave it to where there are ties, and you can actually tie together. It would leave parts exposed of your skin, but you could wear a tank top underneath that. So don't be intimidated if you don't know how to sew or don't have a sewing machine. Some of these, depending, I wouldn't recommend it really for the sides because when you move it could come undone. But areas like sleeves or like the hem at the bottom, if you wanted to use that fusible tape, you could do that too, that you iron and it sticks together. So anyway, once you have your shirt pinned up where it's going to come together and laid out, take a shirt or a dress or an article of clothing that you like how it fits. In this case, this is a J.Lo dress I use all the time. It's very form-fitting, and I use this all the time when I do these shirts. But I'm going to lay this down. Okay, so I'm just going to line up the collar here to the collar on the shirt and make sure that the shoulders are matching in about the same places. One thing to keep in mind when you're working with something like mine has a print on the front and writing, you want to make sure that when you cut it, the print is actually still on the shirt. You don't want to cut it and then have it off or in your armpit somewhere. So once that is laid out, take something. I have a piece of chalk that is made for sewing. You can take a regular piece of chalk, or if you don't have that, take a pencil, anything that will show up on the shirt, and mark the sides. You're going to want to leave extra room to account for where you sew it. And a good rule of thumb, if you're not quite sure, is to leave extra. You can always go back and sew it, but you can't add material on once you've cut it off. In this case, I'm going to do a little different design than the last time because I don't want to have a bunch of matching shirts that are the same design. But I'll show you how I did the last one too. So just take your chalk, and you're going to want to outline, like I said, allowing a little extra. Okay, and then you're going to want to go up to about where the armpit is on your dress and sketch over this way. Okay, so for instance, this is the shirt that I just made that I put on TikTok. and I'll show you from the inside. Okay, so this is where I drew my line up. Drew my line, pinned it, and then went ahead and cut it. And what I find easiest to do to make sure each side matches, I went ahead and cut that piece off, and then I used this as my template. And then I matched it over here. I took my chalk and I traced it exactly, and then I went ahead and cut that out, and that way both sides matched. Before you do any cutting, you want to make sure that you put pins here so that when you go to sew it, it stays put. So I also used this piece that I cut from the neck and transferred it over to this side and traced it and cut it. And that way you're more likely to get an accurate depiction and symmetry on each side rather than cutting it freehand and just kind of cutting it freehand over here too. So use your cutout piece on the one side for your template on the other. I found that works. This is the sketch that I'm doing for this shirt. It's going to be a little bit more complicated, but instead of going like this straight up and going over for the arms, like this one has arms on both sides, I'm going to do more of like a halter slanted top. So this is actually going to be the seam here, and I'm just going to take this and sew it straight up because later when I go to do the other side, I'm going to take this over. So I hope I don't lose everyone, but I don't want to have a whole bunch of shirts that all match each other. I'm going to get a little bit more creative with this, and hopefully you can still see the process. Use your pins to tack the front and the back. You don't want to go over that chalk line because when you go to cut, you're going to be running into your pins. So take these back far enough that you have room to cut. And I don't know when I go to make the halter where this is going to hit exactly. So just to be safe, I'm going to cut this all the way up and sew it all the way up. And then I'll show you how I do the other side. Just going to cut and roughly follow my markings. Okay. So you'll want to save this piece because this will act as a good template on the other side. So the one side is done. I can go ahead and take the pins off of the bottom for right now. I'm going to flip this inside out. Okay, so here's what I've got so far. Okay, so because I really am looking for a different design on this side, what I'm going to do is lay the part that I cut off from this side on the right side of this, trace along, and then I'm going to sew it on the outside, and then I'm going to cut and kind of make like a little fringe, and it hopefully will make sense once I have it on. Now for this side, I'm going to go ahead and cut at an angle here. Okay, so here's the piece that I cut off. Hopefully this shows on camera because it's black. Okay, so I'm going to take this upstairs and sew this now on the outside of the shirt. And this side is going to have an arm, where this side's just going to be like a halter top. I want to have this extra material when I cut it kind of laying like a ruffle. Because I don't need to cut this side, I'm actually going to take my pins and I can cross that chalk line. Okay, so at this point, I do believe I want this at an angle. Just go straight across. Okay. Okay, so again, I apologize for this being off camera. It's just, there's no way I'm gonna take my halo light and my other lighting and cart it all the way upstairs to get these steps. You all know what a sewing machine looks like. So I went ahead and sewed along where I traced. And then I tried it on just for the heck of it. And because this is a men's shirt, this just really sloppy because of the size of it. So I went ahead and folded over the hem and made a stitch. And I'm going to take elastic and thread it through there. And then once I get enough elastic to where it's good, I'm going to sew that in place. I like taking a safety pin and pinning that on there and using that as a guide to thread it through a channel like this. So I did leave one end of this open so that I could get the elastic through. So you just take it in the channel and like work it through. And this comes in handy for all kind of things. But before I do that, I'm going to get this part on camera where I cut this side. I want to have it like a really cute, like a fringy looking idea underneath this portion. Here's where I sewed. And I'm just going to, and so here's my line here. And I'm just going to cut. See if that gives it kind of the ruffle look I was going for. I can even make that a little smaller. I could add stuff to it. I might decide to just get rid of it altogether. So anyway, I'm going to take this and thread it through, sew it, and then I will be back on camera to let you know how it turned out or if I made any adjustments. I went ahead and put that elastic in. Here's what it looks like along the top. And I really wanted more of a ruffly look, but on it just something isn't right. So I think what I'm going to do is take this and cut it and make fringe and like pull on it, and that'll make it a little bit stretchier, and maybe that will help it. I'll get that process on camera and then I'll give it a try on and see what I think of it. Worst case scenario, I can undo that seam and just make it a cute halter top and be done with it. So let's try to add some fringe though, because I do want it to be a little bit different. So I think I'm just going to cut them all. I don't want to come too close to that seam because I don't want that to unravel. I think that's more of the look I was going for. It's just something just wasn't right. All right, so I think I'm digging this fringe. Oh yeah, I think that's gonna be cute on. So the only thing left to do is to put it on and model it. So here's the end result. I'm actually really happy with it. I was a little iffy there for a minute when the ruffles weren't looking right, but I really do like the fringe. I think it's cool. If you wanted to, you could like add stuff on, make them like really long, but I think they look really cute. If you wanted to, instead of sewing that side, you could just cut the fringe. You could tie them together and you'd have like a peekaboo look. But here, this looks much better. When I first tried it on without the elastic, it was way too huge. It would be falling down. So here's the back. Now in the case where you want to have both sides sewn, like this shirt, I left it a little bit roomier through the body. And then I sewed like a little bit of a hem, took extra material that I had, stretched it, threaded it through, and made it tie, just because I wanted a little bit different detail. And then I went ahead for this one and just freehanded kind of cut the neck. I did one side, folded it over, traced on that side, just took a pair of scissors and made little slices that kind of gradually get a little bit smaller. I took fabric that was left over from another shirt that was yellow and just made these little ties to kind of give it a pop of color. So this is another one I made. This is a dress I made, doing the same thing, just tracing along the sides, sewing it. And then for the top, I just kind of freehanded cut that out, cut, and then I did put a little stitch along here to keep it from unraveling, but you don't have to. Here's a dress I made where I just cut straight down and sewed it, cut across the top, sewed there, and then I took a bra strap left over from an old bra and sewed that in so that it is adjustable in the shoulders. And then here's one I made into a beach cover-up where I just made it flare out at the bottom, cut and sewed, and then I got a little fancy. I put elastic in the top and also created from the extra fabric little pockets, which are on the inside. So I hope you were inspired to make over a t-shirt that maybe you find at a thrift store or something that is sentimental to you. And I hope that you will like, subscribe, follow me everywhere. And until next time, take care.